So nice.
Okay, we're holding on the bottom of Gimel and Beis, right? By Yavam and Niklas Babia. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. By learning Hashem the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, the Mishnah said how a woman is acquired in marriage. Said how a woman is released from the marriage. And then it also says how a yavam acquires a yavama. It says the yavam is acquired through relations. And how is she released from marrying the yavam? That would be with chalitza, or if he dies and there's no one left. Okay, no other brothers. So it starts off with hayavama niknas b'bia chulu. Yavama is acquired with relations. That means that the brother, the remaining brother, marries his brother's widow, and he acquires her with the relations. And how do we know that the relations is the way he acquires her? Maybe he acquires her with money, like in other marriages. Maybe he acquires her with a document, like in other marriages. So the pasuk says, that her yavam comes onto her, and he lives with her and he takes her as a wife, which means that how does he take her for a wife? By living with her. Gemara says, how do you know that that's what it means? That it's limiting it to only when he lives with her, only with intimacy. Maybe it's like a way a wife is acquired and always, which is with money and a document. Don't think like that. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Actually, a brisa says this, that you could have thought that maybe money and a document can complete the acquisition of a yavama, just like relations, just like the intimacy completes the marriage. Talmud Laimar biyibma biya geimeres ba ve'en kesav shtar geimerim ba, and that he marries her. That means that the relations is what completes it, and not kesav shtar.
The original couple is in the betrothal stage.
Yeah.
So there is no exactly. Is there two stages here?
No, not in this. So Imkain, 1 second. Imkain. Rashi has a different gears here. Rashi says that. What are you telling me that biyibma means? That it's only the relations. Biyibma teaches me something else. Haimi Baile, according to Rashi, according to our Gemara. Ve'ema, I'm sorry. Ve'ema my biyibma the bal karchmi abim. What this pasuk of biyibma is teaching me something else. It's teaching me not that it's the intimacy that creates the marriage. It's teaching me that if he lives with her, even if he rapes her, they're considered married. And even if it's against her will. So basically what the Gemara is telling me is that you can only make one limud from this pasuk, and you used it already once. Yeah, you can only have one derivation from this pasuk, and you've already used it for something else. So the Gemara says, "Im kain lemakra v'yibim." My v'yibma. What does it mean v'yibma? Shamet minei tarti. That extra hey is teaching me two things. Number one, that you can marry, this acquisition of the yavam on the yavama could be against her will. And the second thing is that that's the one that completes the act, and not money and documents. Okay, now how does she acquire herself? How does she go free from marrying the yavam? So the Mishnah said, the chalitza. Minalan, how do you know that chalitza works? That chalitza sets her free. The Gemara's not asking how do you know they have to do chalitza. We know they have to do chalitza, but how do you know that that is enough? That now she doesn't have to marry the yavam, she's allowed to marry anyone else. Maybe there's a mitzvah to do chalitza, and so you did chalitza, but you're still stuck. Maybe you're still stuck, talking to the woman. The ksiv. So the answer is, it says in the pasuk, "V'nikra Shmei Yisrael beis chalitza," and his name will be called in Israel the house of the removed shoe. Kivan shechalat banal hutzalachal Yisrael. What does it mean? His name will be called in Israel. It means that now this wife will be able to marry anyone else in Israel. Hi Yisrael, hachidasa. The word Israel is coming to teach me that. You use that pasuk for something else. Like in Tanur Reb Shmuel Bar Yehuda. It's taught by Reb Shmuel Bar Yehuda. B'Yisrael. When it says the word Yisrael, b'bestin shel Yisrael, b'bestin shel gerim. Yeah, there's a problem. The two versions to this text. Yeah, what does it say by you in your Gemara?
It teaches that chalitza may be performed only in a Jewish court, but not in a Gentile court.
Not in a Gentile court. Okay. Okay, so that's what our Gemara says. Not in a Gentile court. The Bach adds in, and not in a Bezdin of converts. It means that the judges of the Bezdin were not supposed to be converts. There's a question if that applies. What a Bezdin of what? Naftali, do you remember for Dini Mamanis? Was it a problem if a Bezdin was converts?
I don't think it's a problem for Dini Mamanos.
It couldn't have been.
No, I'm asking. There is a discussion about for what types of halachas should there not be a convert on the Bezdin. That's the discussion. Anyway, over here, according to the Bach, our Gemara is telling me that when you do chalitza, it's supposed to be done by a Jewish Bezdin, Bezdin of Yisrael, and not by a Bezdin of converts, or according to the other version of the Gemara, and not by a non-Jewish court. It can't be done by a non-Jewish court. So
Convert can't be on the base then?
it depends for what.
Oh.
It depends for what. There's a whole discussion about if a convert can be on the Bezdin for conversion. It's a whole discussion.
Because
I don't know if it has to do because he converted. I'm not sure. If
no,
it has
because
to.
you're like passing it on. So
Okay. So the Gemara answers, easy answer. Trebi Yisrael Ksivi. It says twice Yisrael. It says twice the word Yisrael. One is Lakim Bikar Shmei Yisrael Beischol Tzanal. And the other one is Lakim Shemachav Yisrael, to establish the name of his brother in Yisrael. So it says Israel twice. That teaches me, one, that it has to be the Jewish Bezdin, and the other one that teaches me that she's allowed to go ahead and get married after the chalitza. But 1 second, we're not done. We need it up for what it says in the Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda says, one time we were sitting in front of Reb Tarfon. This is Rabbi Yehuda talking, and he had a connection to Reb Tarfon. Reb Tarfon supported him, or he would. I think when there's a Gemara somewhere that Reb Tarfon let Rabbi Yehuda eat beets from his field, or something. Anyway, he says we're sitting by Reb Tarfon. The bossy Yavama lachleitz, and the Yavama walks in. She wants to do chalitza. And he said to us, Anu over here it would take 6 months preparation. Over there she walked in, they did it on the spot. So he says, yeah, everyone say chalutzanal. So you see, it has to be Yisrael. That I guess it means that they have to respond. Or the Gemara says, no, that's not from the word Yisrael. That's because it says that they will call his name. So the word Yisrael was still extra. Okay. Oh, 1 second. It says of it in last week's parsha, it had a whole thing about Hashira. If it means Hashira man the Bezdin, or if a shayrim, right? Wasn't there a whole discussion? The machlekes in Shar Ha'ir or it meant the best then. It was machlekes like Rashi and Onkelos or something in last week's parsha. It said a few times a shayra, right? Okay, that's what you want to say. You want to say that, but also it says over there that they go up to the and that would be enough. Very good. Okay, the next quote from the Mishnah is that the woman that is waiting for Yibam can go free with the Misas Yavam, if the remaining brother dies, then there's no one left for her to marry. So her husband died and her brother-in-law died, and now there's no brothers left, so she's allowed to marry anyone. No, they need the brother. So those are two options. Either they did chalitza because the brother was alive, or the brother died, and now there's no brothers left. Now she can marry anyone. Talking about how does she get out of this attachment to the brother-in-law, either with chalitza or with his death. Yeah, if there's no brothers, she's free.
If there are 5 brothers,
then she would have to wait for do chalitza with whoever's left. Yeah. Not on all 5, on one of the ones that are left. Because the death of one of them isn't going to resolve the issue. It has to be that there's no brothers left.
what if one wants to marry her and one wants chalitza?
Yeah, I think Yibam comes first. I think there was a priority to Yibam.
It's the oldest first.
The oldest is first also. Yeah.
So if he refuses her, because at least then the other brothers don't have a shot at this.
Right, but I think if he refuses her, I think they offer it to the other brothers before he does chalitza. Yeah, I think that's what we learned. Okay.
Regardless if her in-laws are already married.
Oh, now that's a good question. I mean, if a new brother is born after the death of her husband, that's what you're asking.
If it was after or before,
we learned in Vamas that a birth afterwards doesn't.
Right.
But if they're already married, they just have another wife.
Oh yeah.
the older brother. Huh.
The first wife.
So how?
Rabbi Gershon, yeah.
How did he square that?
So he would probably say that you don't do it with the brother that's married, you do it with the brother that's not married.
Was he the one
probably
that's,
say that you do chalitza or something instead of the marriage if she's married already.
Did he make it so that Yibum was no longer commonplace?
No, that was later on, I think. I think even amongst Sfardim, I think they still do Yibum. And Ashkenazim do chalitza usually. I think that's. Okay. But Misa Sayav, I know there's cases amongst Ashkenazim when they did Yibum. Misa Sayavam, if the Yavam, which means the remaining brother, dies, so then the woman is able to marry anyone else. Minalan, how do we know that helps? It's similar to yesterday's Gemara. How do you know that if the husband dies, that the woman is allowed to marry someone else? Maybe she's still attached to the deceased husband, right? So the Gemara says, Kal v'chaymer. We have a Kal v'chaymer. Ma isha she bechenek. If a regular woman that's married and she commits adultery, so what's the punishment for that? Chenek. Misa sabal matirta. But nevertheless, if the husband dies, so she's not considered married. Yivama. So if she's not even married, she's just has an attachment that if she would have lived with someone else, it would be a negative prohibition because she's not really married to the Yavam yet. Shehi balav, it's only a negative prohibition like Kolshkein. Is it not a Kal v'chaymer that if the Yavam dies, that she should be free to marry anyone? If such a strict attachment that's to her husband sets her free with his death, So for sure, the Yavam, which is not such a strong attachment, for sure, should set her free with his death. Okay, the Gemara says, one second, beget. You're telling me that this attachment of a woman to her husband is so strict. It's not so strict. Look, even a little document sets her free. But over here, by the Yavam, it's a much stricter it's a much stronger attachment because the little document isn't going to set her free. She has to do the whole process of chalitza to get free. Chalitza is stronger, and that's why maybe by a regular marriage, yeah, his death sets her free. But by Yibam, maybe his death won't set her free. So the Gemara says, "Hainami yaitze b'chalitza." I know she doesn't go free with the get, but she still goes free with chalitza. So if she go free with chalitza, that's good enough. That also his death should set her free. Than chalitza. Uh-huh. Okay, and then the Gemara says that they're both equal. That okay, she goes free with a get, or she goes free with chalitza. That's the same. Ella mala eshasir shekain isra matira. 1 second. When it comes to Estes, we have logic that the one that made her prohibited to marry everyone else, when he dies, so now she's permitted to everyone else. Who was that? That was her husband. So the one that prohibited her now permits her by his death. But by the Yavam, who was the one that prohibited her to everyone else? It was her first marriage that prohibited her to everyone else, and she still can't marry everyone else. But so the Yavam dying isn't going to help her from the prohibition that was still on her.
This is a call v'komer here, right?
Yeah.
And the logic is that somehow chalitza is more significant than a get. Is that what it's saying?
We're just
call v'komer is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're asking that. How do you know that she goes free from the attachment that she had on her from her first husband and from her second husband and from her Yavam by the death of the Yavam?
Yeah, but I'm not understanding the call v'komer.
So we had a kal v'chomer that if a regular marriage goes free by the husband's death, so for sure, when it's not even a marriage, it's just an attachment, it's just the zika, that should set her free by the Yavam's death. So we said 1 second, regular marriage goes free by a little document. Over here, she can't just do a document. Said, okay, but nevertheless, she still does chalitza. So that should set her free. So the Gemara says, but 1 second, a regular, what's the reason why she goes free by the husband's death? Because the husband was the one that made her prohibited. Over here, it's not the husband that's making her, it's not the Yavam that's making her prohibited, it's the original husband that's making her prohibited. So the Gemara, Amar Rashi says, Hanami Yisra Matira. Yavam Meister Yavam Sharila. It's not true. It's the Yavam that's making her prohibited because she's supposed to be marrying him. So when he dies, she's now free. Exactly the same logic that we had by a regular marriage. The Gemara, okay. The Gemara is satisfied with that, and now we move on.
Yavam is the person who marries the Yavama.
Yeah, the remaining brother. She's free, right? No, we're saying even, or if he did have brothers, but they died, she's free also. Right.
But if he has several brothers, they all have to be dead in order for this to be effective.
Yeah.
Be a brother.
I guess the Gemara had to find this answer, or she would have been an aguna all her life.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
What do you say?
Saying that how important this is to getting this, because otherwise she would be stuck as an aguna. She wouldn't be able to marry anyone if the death doesn't set her free. Nevertheless, what do you do? How do you get rid of a lav?
Is it a lav that would force this divorce? She went to marry someone else.
I think it says Tatse. It says she's supposed to get divorced. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, there's two. When you say invalid, there's different meanings of that. There's one meaning is that it's not considered a marriage, and she doesn't even need a divorce. There's another term when we say invalid, it means that it wasn't prohibited. She does need a divorce, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't a marriage, right? This one it would be a marriage, but she would need to get divorced. I think that's what we learned. Okay, now we move on. Some other questions here. We should let a regular married woman go free with chalitza, without a divorce, just with chalitza, by taking off his shoe and spitting on the floor. That should work for a regular marriage. It should work because we have a kal v'chaimer. Ma yivama shena yetze beget yetze b'chalitza. Yivama is so strict, a divorce document won't work. But nevertheless, chalitza, which is so strong, that does work. So zu, this woman, she yetze beget, that a little document can set her free. In a din she yetze b'chalitza for sure. Call in the big guns. The chalitza for sure should set her free. Amarkra, so the pasuk says, Sefer Krisus, has to be a bill of divorce. Sefer Karsa vein davaracha karsa. It's the document that sets her free, that severs the relationship, not something else. Okay, we answered that question. Now we take it the opposite way. So you tell Yavama yaitzu beget mikal v'chaimer. The Yavama should be able to go free with a get, without chalitza. Why? When it comes to a married woman, chalitza would not set her free, a regular married woman. She can't just take off the husband's shoe and spit on the floor. She has to actually get a divorce document from him. So Zuz, this woman, she yaitzu b'chalitza, that she goes free with just taking off his shoe and spitting on the floor. And then she yaitzu beget, for sure the divorce document should work. Amakra kacha, v'kacha li'ikuva. Says so or such you should do, and that's telling me like a strong point that you can't do it any other way. It has to be with chalitza, it can't be with a get. Kacha. Gemara says, I understand that you have to do it this way, but maybe you should still have a kal v'chaimer. Every time it says ikuva, it says something that would be stopping the, making it, how do they translate ikuva over there? Oh. Yeah, anything that precludes another option. You can't have a kal v'chaimer. 1 second, we're going to have a little bit of a long question here. We're going to show that maybe you can have a kal v'chaimer even though you have an ikuva. How do we see this? It says Yom Kippur or Yom Kippurim. What about Yom Kippur? The ksiv, it says over there Gairol v'chuka. It says that you have to do a lottery to see which animal. There's 2 goats. One of them. Oh wow! Look at this. This is good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they didn't have goats in
The
Peru
goat.
when they did this stuff, so they had to use the town.
That's funny. This is from Peru. What is this? Brass? Or,
That's the real goat.
a real goat.
His little brothers and sisters. For other sacrifices.
Actually, for this, they're supposed to be the same size.
Ah, so which is invalid? The bigger group.
So, yeah, the big one. What happens here is that there's 2. Yeah, so we'll use. Anyway,
They're all not.
let's take one away.
Qualified?
So, what you would do is like this: you would have 2 goats. One of them is going to get pushed off the cliff, Azazel, and one of them is going to be brought as a sacrifice, and they would do a lottery. This is what's done on Yom Kippur. Yeah, that was a yeah, you'll see on the passages on Yom Kippur.
The cliff was to the south of this
I'm not
that
sure
is
where it
Sarah.
was. Is it to the south? Or what?
what they call Given right
Oh, it could
No.
be.
Well, that's one of the groups of where they used to do it.
Uh-huh. How far is the walk?
now from this way.
I think this was a little bit of a
No, this
longer
was
walk.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's not.
They went through the city.
I know. Okay, so over there it says that you do a lottery, and it also says chukah. Vitanya and Usadan Abraisa Vaso Chatas says that you make it for a chat, and he makes it for a chatas. How does he make the one animal that's going to be brought as a sacrifice as a sin offering? Sheyachol, because I could have thought, I'm sorry, I skipped line. Agar Laso Chatas, the lottery makes it for a sin offering. Mein Hashem Oisa Chatas. And by calling it a chatas doesn't make it a chatas. Usually, how do you make an animal into a sacrifice? You call it that sacrifice. It says this is a sin offering, and it becomes a sin offering. But by Yom Kippur, it doesn't work like that. You have to do the lottery. The lottery makes it into the sin offering, and it's not, in other words, because he would lift up lottery, and it would say in his right hand, and it would say La Hashem, and that would mean that the animal on the right would go to be for the sin offering. Or if it would be on his left hand, then it would be the left animal on the left would be the sin offering. So it's the lottery that does it. Sheyachal, because I could have thought differently. It shouldn't be logical. In a place where you don't need a lottery. That means anytime someone needed to bring two birds as a sacrifice, one would be a chatas and one would be an oila. So over there, if you would do a lottery, which one is going to be the chatas, which one is oila, it meant nothing. You had to actually pronounce, this one is the chatas, this one is the oila. But Kiddush Hashem, you have to pronounce it, you have to actually say this one is the chatas or this is the oila. Makim Shekidish Hagayral, in a place where the lottery does work, for sure it should work. If where the girl doesn't work, pronouncing it works, girl means the lottery. If where the lottery doesn't work, pronouncing it works. So for sure where the lottery works, for sure pronouncing it should work. So the pasuk tells me about so chatas that he makes it a chatas by how does he make it a chatas? A girl so chatas, he makes it by doing the lottery. And pronouncing it doesn't make it into a chatas. Okay, so we're not at our main point yet. What's our point? Why did we quote this? Time of the Mayatikra. What's the reason why the lottery doesn't work? Oh, I'm sorry. What's the reason why pronouncing it doesn't work? Because I have a pasuk that tells me I need to do the lottery. If not for that pasuk, I would have thought that pronouncing it should work. Dashina kal v'chaimer, because I would have a kal v'chaimer. What was the kal v'chaimer? If I think it means if I wouldn't have had the pasuk of vaso chatas, you would do the lottery and you leave out those words vaso chatas.
It's just those words that are
Still doing the lottery.
What would the lottery say?
But it's just saying which one is the chatas, but it's not spelling it out. So the kal v'chaimer was that if we are the lottery doesn't work, but calling it a chatas does work. So for sure where a lottery works, for sure calling it a chatas should work. That was the kal v'chaimer. If not for the pasuk, I would have had that kal v'chaimer. And afal gav, even though the kasser bechuka, even though it says that this is a statute, when it says in the by karbanis, it says this is a statute. It means that this is the way it has to be, and you can't do it any other way. So you see that even though it precluded any other way, nevertheless, I would have had a kal v'chaimer if not for the pasuk that told me you can't do the kal v'chaimer. It's back to where we were saying that how do you know that you can't do a get for a yavama? Maybe you should do a get. We said no, kacha. I have a pasuk that tells me that you can't have that kal v'chaimer. It says because of that pasuk, you can't have a kal v'chaimer. I have other sources where it says similar things to kacha, and you do the kal v'chaimer.
It's like this.
This like such. So Amakra, how do we know that you can't do a get by a chalitza, by a woman by a yavama? It says la. It says v'kasav la. The get is only done for her, for a married woman. V'la v'lo yavama. We have a different source. The source is not kacha. The source is la. It says la by the get. Maybe la means that it's lishma. You remember we said because of la you write for her. It told me that it needs to be lishma. It says trei la ksivi. It says la twice. How does it say la twice? It says first when she marries this one and she divorces her, and he divorces her. Then it says she marries the second one and he divorces her. He writes for her a divorce. She's not allowed to go back to the first one. So it says la. It says twice over there. Okay. So vakatimi boyle chad lishma. 1 second. I needed the two laws. One of them told me that it needs to be lishma. The other law told me that you can only divorce one wife with this document. You can't use one document to divorce two wives. Let's say I had two wives, both of them were Ruvena. Reuven is divorcing Ruvena 1 and Ruvena 2. They can't just write one document for both of them. It has to have, or I think we learned even if Ruvena and Shimona, you can't use one document for both of them, right? Erase it from the tape, right? Okay. Ella, so now we need a different source. Amakra Nal. It says by the Chalitza, it says that she removes the shoe, his shoe. Nal in midachin alai. It has to be with the shoe, can't do anything else. Behind Nal, the Nal is telling me that it's precluding any other way of them severing that relationship. We need the word Nal for something else. Like the Tanya. Bryce says, Nal, I only know that you can use his shoe. Nal shall call out the minale. How do you know that you can use a shoe from someone else if you can put on someone else's shoe? Nal, riba. Coming to include base chalutza now. That pasuk is what's the other pasuk? V'chalatz ish v'chalutza now. So it's coming to tell me other that it could be his. It could be a shoe that wasn't the brother's. Imkein matam na'alai. So why does it say his shoe? It says na'alai harayalai. It has to fit him. Prat legadol shein yachal alach bay. It's coming to exclude a shoe that's too big that doesn't fit him. Prat lekatan shein chayves reiv raglai. Coming to exclude a shoe that's too small that doesn't cover most of his foot. Prat le misulayim shein leyekev. Coming to exclude a shoe that doesn't have a back. And
like a sandal.
Something like that. And it doesn't have a heel. Is that what it says? If so what are we left with? So we're using the word nal to teach me other things. My hanal shamat minitati. Now we're using the extra hey at the beginning of hanal to teach me that you can only sever the relationship with the shoe and not with the gift.
So in your bastin, did you keep shoes on hand?
No. They had to get it. I'm not sure where they got it from. Yeah.
Rabbi, quick question also. Oh, how come you have this dynamic where it says, "Oh, you can only learn one thing from the pasuk," and then say, "Oh, and then you learn two"? Like that's the second time it showed up today.
Right.
This is like that's like a dorche kind of thing that you don't want to have to learn two things from a pasuk.
Yeah, that's a good question. But what we did today was we said, well, there's an extra letter or something. There's an extra hey before. There's extra hey afterwards. Right? By Yavama, we said it could have said Yavam or something. Then over here we said Hanal. It could have said Nal. But the basis of all of this is that when I have an extra word, so or an extra letter, so that's coming to teach me something. So once it teaches me something, then it's not extra. Then how do you learn something else? It's only teaching me because it was extra. Yeah. However, sometimes we have many drushas that come from like one. I remember seeing in a Prima Gadim, he was asking that how come this Gemara? Sorry. Right, you can have one pasuk that teaches me a lot of halachas. It's a good example. But I think it was saying Gedi, Leisavashal Gedi Bachalevime. So it says Gedi means not a it has to be a kosher animal, it has to be this, and it had like a whole bunch of drushas. It says, I know that it said it 3 times, but it was still learning much more than 3. And the Prima Gadim asked, like, how could he get more drushes out of this than the amount of time it says? And I don't remember how he answered it. Apparently, sometimes you can do it because I guess the simple answer would be that sometimes it's implied from the word more things than just one. The word itself is telling me that it has to be this and it can't be this, that, and the other thing. Which is more than just one limit. Sometimes it doesn't actually imply anything. It's just because there's an extra letter, it's going to teach me something. That I can only do one with. Maybe that's the shot. Okay, now start a new discussion here. Really throws us off from Kiddushin. But the way we got into this is because we spoke about how a woman is betrothed, that there's three ways, how she goes free, where there's two ways, and then a Yavama. So now we start to talk about a slave. How is the slave acquired, and how does the slave go free? Now, there's 5 types of slaves. Let's see if I remember this. There's a Eved Ivri that is sold by the court because he stole. There's a Eved Ivri that sells himself because he's poor. There's a non-Jewish slave that's owned by a Jew. There's a Jewish slave, an Eved Ivri, that's owned by a non-Jew. And then there's the Amma Hevriya, the Jewish maidservant. Oh, what's the other one?
You have captured from war.
No, you can't make it.
That would be it.
She, during the first year. What is she?
Not a
Not for a
slave,
month.
right? I thought
For
it
a
says
month.
late to summer, but huh? Oh.
Yeah, what's up
Yeah,
with
but that doesn't.
Lil Tisama, but you're not supposed
Late to summer, you're not supposed to work
Can't
it. Can't make her work. Sorry? He was very poor. He sold himself to a Ger Toshav, a non-Jew that was living in Israel. That was probably a wealthy guy, and said, "Look, I'll work for you, and you support my family. Give me money. I have to pay back my debts, whatever." So the psukim say that you're supposed to go and buy him back. His relatives are supposed to buy him out of that. That's what it says. Well, I brought the Chumash here. We're gonna have to look it up. So I'm sorry. What do you mean up to 10? Oh, is that what it says? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Maybe that's what it says. Okay, so it starts like this. Mishnah. Eved Ivri nikna b'kesef. How do you acquire a Jewish slave? With money. You give him money, and you tell him, "I'm acquiring you for 6 years," and he's going to take the money and do with it whatever he needs, and now he becomes a slave. What is the word indentured? Indentured slave. What does indentured mean? What is that? Is that what it means?
He has a debt.
Oh, it's because of a
indentured.
debt. Uh-huh. Interesting. So he's acquired with money, bishtar, with a document. I guess you would give him a document. How does he acquire himself? There's 2 ways that he's acquired. How does he get himself free? Bishanim. That means if the 6 years went up. B'yovel, if the yovel came, that's the jubilee. B'geroin kesef, if somehow he gets a hold of money, he could pay himself free by giving back the money that he got, and by decreasing how much time he had already worked. Because of that, he shouldn't be giving back, just the amount that he's not going to work. Hey?
Sorry, not
Non-Jewish slave, no. They will serve forever. Yisera alav amavriya. There's one extra way that a Jewish maidservant goes free. That's shekainas asim b'simanim. She goes free when she has signs of maturity. Hanirtza. What about the one that the Jewish slave that stays for an extra amount of time because he likes his master and his wife? So he gets his ear pierced. Nikna Beritzia, he's acquired just by that ear piercing. It's not in the lobe, it's through the actual cartilage. But Kainas Atzmi be Yoivel of Misas Adam. And he goes free by Yoivel or by when the master dies. Now, it's interesting because what we just said is that by a regular Jewish slave, if the master dies, the slave goes on to the inheritors. It's only by the nirtza that it doesn't go on to the inheritors. Follow? Nirtza is the one that his ear was. Yeah, he doesn't go to the inheritors. He goes free. Probably we'll see. Well, we'll see in the Gemara. Okay. And oh, that's good. Yeah. But she doesn't go. She doesn't go free. In that, right. She doesn't go free. She's not kainas atzma. Right. Okay. Gemara starts like this. How do we know that you can acquire a Jewish slave with money? It says that the relatives come and buy the Jewish slave that's sold to a non-Jew. They buy him back. It says mikasef miknase. It says from the money. What do they have to do? They have to decrease the money, the amount. They have to subtract from the amount that he worked, and to buy him back with the remaining money that he earned, and to give that back. Which means, how was he acquired? It means he was acquired with the money, and that's what they have to decrease from. They have to subtract. Gemara says, well, that pasuk that you quoted, you haven't really taught me about the other 5 cases. You only told me one of them. You said that the Jewish slave that's sold to the non-Jew, he is acquired with money because non-Jews acquire everything with money.
What if it's an acquisition by force? Bandits.
Right. Right. I guess what we're discussing is, we're discussing what is actually the way of acquiring. Like, we're setting up the rules.
Oh, okay. So the other way is not a proper
right. No. So Nimkali Yisrael Minalan, how do you know if there's a Jewish slave that's sold to a Jew? How do you know that that's also with money? Amakra v'hefta. It says that he sets her free with money. By the Amma Hevriya, he sets her free. That means that if she comes up with money, she can give it and she could subtract from how much she was there, and she goes free. Gemara says, well, I understand that. That's because the way you marry a girl is with money, so the way you acquire her as a slave is also with money. But how do we know that a regular Jewish slave owned by a Jewish owner, how do we know that is acquired with money? So we have a comparison of a slave man, Jewish slave man, to a Jewish slave girl, that both of them should be with money now. Ashkan Machru Bezdin. That was talking about where the Bezdin sold him because he stole and he had to pay back and they sold him. That's because he sold against his will. How do you know when he sells himself voluntarily just to get money, to pay back his own debts? How do we know that that's going to be with money? Yalef Sacher Sacher. We're going to learn from the comparison from the word Sacher. It says by Meicher Atzma, when he sells himself, it says the word Sacher. It says that he would be like a worker with you. And when the Bezdin sells him, it's also, you tell him that he gets the payment of a Sacher per year of a worker. Sacher means a hired laborer. This would only work according to the opinion that learns Sacher Sacher. If you don't learn Yalef Sacher, if you don't learn Sacher Sacher, what are you going to say? How do you know that the slave is acquired with money. It says in there's two paragraphs in the Torah, one after the other. One says, and if he acquires it's adding on to the first one, which the first one was where he sells himself to a non-Jew. After that, it says when he sells himself to a Jew. So we're learning just like by the non-Jew, it's with money, so too by the Jew, it's with money. Montana Dlayal Sacher Sacher. I guess we'll leave it over by Montana. Okay, stuff over there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.